Hi everyone, my name is Melanie and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about one of the most hotly debated topics of the art community, tracing. Now I have committed a fair amount of tracing crimes against the trade and I want to share my experiences with you and also hear what you gotta say. Before I drag my good name through the mud, I want to start with a disclaimer. I'm not a fully trained industry professional. I'm a beginner to intermediate artist who wants to get better. There's a lot of fantastic instructional and entertaining content on YouTube by amazing artists. They will do a much better job at teaching you than I ever could. But I know from personal experience that watching these artists can sometimes be discouraging and even intimidating. With my Awful Art series, I want to look at practices that any professional artist would tell you not to do, or would teach very differently. Based on my experiences, I want to share how my kind of head through the wall, anything but professional approach has served me with any of these topics. And now, let's dive headfirst into controversy. I will come forward and confess that I did a lot of tracing in my art until very recently. I mostly work digital, and if you've ever done that as well, you know how seductively easy it is to trace. I would just take a screen cap of my reference, plonk it down in my drawing program, hit a new layer, and then I was good to go. Why did I trace? I was insecure in my abilities as an artist, and I always wanted to make sure that I was putting the right thing in the right place. Tracing can seemingly elevate your skill level immediately. Instead of my usual wonky lines or ill-shaped hands, I would come out of the process with a much better result than usual. Making art was a hobby for me, and I wanted to produce pretty pictures. If that is your philosophy still, cool. If you enjoy making art for yourself, trace your heart out. And I mean that. A hobby is supposed to spark joy, and you should not have to regulate or explain yourself when you simply want to make art to make yourself happy. Without any reservations, I can tell you that tracing improved the stability of my hand and my lines. That was hardly a shocker. After all, what I did was draw a lot of lines. For me as a beginner artist, that was rewarding at first. I would trace a reference, color it, sometimes even color drop and copy shadows and highlights directly over the reference. I would blend it and done. Regrettably, following this process, all that tracing did for me was to make my hand a bit more stable. If my process had only been that, if I had not done any other type of studying, I would have essentially just had painted by the numbers. Tracing can sometimes be useful in your study work, sure. For example, if you want to focus on one thing like rendering or color, but I found it was necessary to combine it with some process steps where I actually had to think about what I was doing. When I make art now, I want to feel my head hurt a little. I want to think. Then I know I'm learning something. Now let's talk about the dark side of tracing. When I was tracing a lot, my brain at some point would always go on autopilot. I wasn't thinking about what I was doing because at the end of the day, I had no active part in the success of the piece. It was already all figured out. Sure, it was relaxing. But other than that, it did nothing for me. It did not teach me any fundamentals. Tracing did not teach me how to draw a head on my own. It did not teach me how to break down reference to basic shapes, how light works to create form, how to think in 3 dimensions on a piece of digital paper. Tracing is a shortcut for all of these things. So when I was tracing mindlessly, I only improved at glacial speed. Finally, there is one last thing we all need to keep in mind when we're tracing. When I did this, I was copying the work of another artist. I worked based on photo reference, which meant that somebody sometimes a whole team of people put together this one shot I was using. And while the act of transforming it into an art piece is work that I did, at no point was I ever realizing my own creative vision. I made no money off of this art. I shared it to my friends and family on my very tiny Instagram account. But I never credited the original creator of my reference, and that sucks. These people helped me make a piece that I was proud of and that deserves some willingness to share the spotlight. On any type of social media, I know this behavior won't fly. People out there are smart, and there are many of them, and they will recognize traced artwork. Tracing without credit, pretending traced artwork is your own, or projecting yourself to be far above your actual skill level is nothing I want to get in hot water for. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is my first video on YouTube, and I hope many will follow. I want to create a space where we can grow as artists without always having to measure ourselves against the best of the industry. And sometimes where we are free to do absolutely awful art. I also want to launch a fan art series where I make art based on some things I love and we can gush about it together. Finally, I also want to document this journey of mine with the ultimate goal to become good enough to bring my own personal stories and characters to life. If any of that sounds like fun to you, feel free to subscribe or get in touch via my Instagram. One of the main reasons I'm doing this is to hear and learn from other artists, so I can't wait to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope all your dreams come true and see you next time.